Here's our timeline this afternoon. A source telling our Adam Schefter that Packers linebacker Jake Ryan has a torn ACL. He was slated to start at inside linebacker, instead carted off from Monday's practice with the injury. The Boston Globe says the Patriots have released wide receiver Jordan Matthews, who suffered a hamstring injury on Sunday. Our reporter Mike Reese coming up to tell us just how concerned they may be in New England regarding their receivers.
If you got your popcorn ready. Do you got your popcorn ready? You got your popcorn ready? Hey, ready? Huh? I'm ready to see the show, baby.
And get your popcorn ready for NFL Live today. We'll talk about our favorite T.O. moments and his controversial Hall of Fame decision. Jalen Ramsey has some thoughts on his Week 1 matchup against Odell Beckham Jr. Ramsey promises a good show, and so do we. NFL Live starts right now. Hello, everybody, on this Wednesday. I'm Wendy Nix, Adam Schefter, Josina Anderson, Darren Woodson. We start this afternoon with news out of Philadelphia. Eagles quarterback Carson Wentz was kept out of team drills for the third straight practice. He is, of course, working his way back from surgery to repair two torn knee ligaments 7.5 months ago. Here is Carson Wentz on his progress.
I think ever since even the injury, we've been saying it's a fluid process. It's constantly a fluid process, and some days you're feeling better than other days. So could there be some change in plan? For sure. But this is part of the plan right now, so we're sticking to it. I haven't been cleared for contact, so I know that's kind of part of the reason. Just want to keep me out of some of those. Want to stay in more controlled environments right now going forward. But I'm sticking to my goal. The hope is to be Week 1, but if not, it's a fluid process, and we'll see as we get going here.
We have discussed often that when making your way from an injury like this, it is not always linear. It can be 2 steps forward, 1 step back. That's to be expected. Adam, do you sense any concern at all right now regarding Carson Wentz and his recovery?
No, I think that they're being smart. It's August 1st. If this was September 1st and they're pulling him out for 3 days, we'd be having a different discussion. But there are still many days left for him to get ready for that Thursday night regular season opener. I still think that he is in play to start that game ultimately. I would guess, and it's a guess, that he winds up starting that game against the Falcons. And I think they're just being smart. Doug Peterson saw some hesitancy on Saturday over the weekend, a little bit. But this is a process. When he hurt the knee initially, doctors told him 9 to 12 months. 9 months would be right at the front end. There's no need to rush it. They're being smart. And I still think that he's going to have a real chance to play in the Thursday night opener.
I agree. Listen, why rush the process? He doesn't have to play right now. And they have a security blanket in Nick Foles who can get some added reps as well. And you're talking about a team right now, personnel-wise, that when Carson Wentz comes back on this football team and he's 100% and ready to go, this team is probably going to win the NFC East. They have the personnel to do so. And right now, I'm looking at Carson Wentz thinking, get your relax a little bit, slow down. He's competitive, I understand that, but slow down a little bit and get your.
You have the right idea in Philadelphia. They have trust the process for the Sixers and don't rush the process.
There we go.
Make
That's exactly right.
And you want that adaptation to be slow, but eventually also you want to start to peel back the mental layer so that he's not flinching when he's behind center. Because obviously when you start going up against defenses that don't have green and white, you don't have time to be flinching. You got to be moving at game speed, and that happens mentally and physically. So obviously you got to start to get into that water at some point.
What a great quarterback situation as a whole, though, if you're the Philadelphia Eagles. Just a luxury of riches. The first preseason game, believe it or not, of the 2018 season, just a little more than 24 hours away now. The Hall of Fame game coming up tomorrow night. You can see the clock is ticking. 8 o'clock Eastern. Chicago and Baltimore, who've been in camp for quite some time because they do play tomorrow night. I say the Bears are in camp. Who isn't? Linebacker Roquan Smith. He is now the last unsigned rookie, the 8th overall pick, looking for specific language that will protect him from losing guaranteed money in the instance that he's suspended because of the NFL's new rule about lowering the helmet. The Bears are clearly hesitant to set a precedent for this new rule. We've seen other players argue for this. Adam, something or someone will have to give in this case.
Well, there's precedent and there's practical. And they should not be confused with each other, because in this particular case, you've got a situation where there's a new rule in the NFL that a player can be suspended for lowering his helmet. Nobody tackles like Roquan Smith. He's a tackling machine. That's why he went with the 8th overall pick, because the Bears wanted him to be the focal point of their defense, making the kinds of plays that he routinely made at Georgia. So with the new rule, basically, if a player is suspended, then it would void some of the guarantees in a contract. So if you're the Chicago Bears, why don't you, like with all the other first-round picks, write in a rule that says if you are suspended for lowering your head, for tackling, for an on-field activity, your guarantees will not be void. It's very simple, very practical. But this situation is such that the Bears are leaning on precedent, and I don't know how practical they're being.
They're not being practical at all. I mean, from a player standpoint, listen, you signed this guy because you're missing that missing link at the inside linebacker position, and you need a tackling machine. I look at this and I think you want a guy to go out there and play as hard as he possibly can. But if there's a helmet-to-helmet contact, you want to take guarantee money away. That makes no sense. I mean, you would think that they would back the player in this situation and just write, like you said, find a way within that contract to write it out.
Now, the reason they're not doing it is because I think they're concerned. They're saying on-field activity. What if he bumps an official, puts his hands on the official? They want that to void the guarantee. But make it specific. Put in the actual rule. Make it to the tackling thing. Put it in, get it done, and get the guy in camp. It's not hard to figure out.
Yeah, I mean, just be specific, Josina. I mean, it really is, in a lot of ways, that simple.
And I have no fault with the player because absolutely in this situation, none of my guarantees can be touched with something that's also random and partly sometimes out of my control, partly can be confused by the referees. Heck, the NFL has some new referees that they're trying to institute with veterans that have left, the field this year who may be confused themselves. So I can't be having any part of my money, particularly in a league where guarantees are not always guaranteed.
Yes.
You know about it. Speak about it as the lone representative on this panel.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I have no problem with him. What I do have a problem, as Adam is saying, is the team not being expedient about getting this done. There's no reason why we should still be haggling over this many weeks with the regular season right around the corner.
And Darren, if you're Roquan Smith's representation, you have to have some trepidation regarding the way this rule will be enforced. You know it's not going to be a clean entry. I mean, anytime there's a change, there's a learning curve there, there's an adjustment period, and he could, or any player could, in effect, be penalized during that time when everybody's trying to sort of get the lay of the land.
Exactly. So you want to make sure that everything's all right within the contract situation. And one thing the players are always, and you just hit on it, you have to protect your guarantees, and your agent has to protect you on those guarantees as well. If I'm the Chicago Bears, you need this inside linebacker. You're trying to fight your way back into the pack with the NFC North, and which is going to be a very competitive division this year. You want your young rookie in training camp because he's at a position, at that inside linebacker position, to be a communicator. He has to communicate with the offensive line, with the defensive line, with the secondary. He's a guy that you need in camp right now to make sure he makes that perfect fit. So I'm looking at the situation thinking, Chicago Bears are behind the eight ball on this. They need to find a way to get this young guy in.
Well, guess what? We're talking about precedent with the Bears, right? Yeah. It would be a precedent from Roquan Smith's perspective if he acquiesced here, gave in, because then it would allow other teams to leave that language in for other players at other times. And when we look at the other first-round draft picks, they have language in their contracts that protects them in the event that they're suspended for the new tackling rule. So the Bears are trying not to set a precedent, and the player also is not trying to set a precedent.
And the thing about it, the player wants to be in camp.
Especially young players.
He's a football player. He's been doing this all his life. I was there myself. I want to be in camp, but I'm not going to go out there and be exposed in some sense because I'm not backed up on the business end of this.
And it's not fair to make the rookie try to relent in this situation.
Exactly.
He's just trying to get in the league.
He's trying to get in the league.
Man.
Yeah.
Well, and Jeff Saturday made such a valid point yesterday. This is the last time he has leverage for any time soon. It will be, 5 more years before he has any say in any of this. So, you know what? Now's the time. Le'Veon Bell remains MIA as well as the Steelers carry on with training camp. He has yet to sign his $14.5 million franchise tender, and for that reason, he is not subject to fines for his no-show. The two sides failed to reach agreement on a long-term deal before last month's deadline. Here's what Mike Tomlin said to CBS Sports about Bell's absence. I'm hopeful that he'll get to us sooner. I'm hopeful that he'll be in better condition even than he was a year ago. Those are two key components that are allowing me to have a wait-and-see attitude. Steeler reporter Jeremy Fowler joins us now. And Jeremy, Mike Tomlin is selling optimism, but what are the chances we see Le'Veon Bell at all in the month of August?
Well, Wendy, Bell's going to skip this cloudy weather here in western Pennsylvania. He's going to stay in sunny South Florida, barring something unforeseen, because that's where he's training right now. His plan is to stay there throughout August, and you can expect him to show up around September 3rd or September 4th, just in time for game prep week 1 against the Cleveland Browns, unless something drastically changes. And the Steelers are resigned to that fate for the most part, and players are now more curious about how he's going to do in 2019 free agency. They still want to see this guy get paid. Center Marquise Pouncey said he's going to get his money eventually, either from us or somebody else.
Jeremy, Juju Smith-Schuster burst onto the scene last season. What kind of expectations does he have for year 2?
Well, Wendy, I just caught up with Juju on his way to lunch here on campus. He told me he knows defenses are going to key on him now. He's not sneaking up on anybody after a huge rookie year, 7 touchdowns and nearly 1,000 yards. So he says he needs to work hard and find a way to adjust. For him, that means versatility. He's known as a physical slot receiver. He told me he's eager to see what he can do when he's on the outside against those top cornerbacks. And after trading Martavis Bryant, they certainly will need that.
Jeremy, thank you. And he's right. He won't be sneaking up on anybody this time around. That's sort of the way it works. Let's go back to Bell, though, and to Mike Tomlin's reference about coming in shape. He even said perhaps better shape than he was last year. But by all accounts, this is a guy who works out pretty hard, despite the fact that he's not doing it with the team.
Well, you know, last year he had a slow start, and he held out last year, and he came into camp. Well, I don't think you can just get off the couch, and I know he's working out, but it's one thing to work out with a trainer and work out in Florida and have that personal workout, and then it's another one to get in the training camp and go to football speed and get the dinks and getting, you know, knocked around and banged around. That's another thing altogether. So there was a slow start basically because he wasn't in football shape last year. This year, it's going to be the same thing. It's going to be exactly – I don't know what the expectation for Mike Tomlin is for Le'Veon Bell coming in this year. He's not going to be in football shape, and it's going to take at least 2 to 3 weeks to get there.
Is there any remedy for that other than being there? Is there any way to offset that?
There's no way you can simulate that. There's no way you can do that when you're out there running around, you know, doing training things. Because when you put the pads on and you have to react to an inside linebacker, or Roquan Smith, or another player, it's a totally different reaction. The body's going to react differently.
Yeah, you can't duplicate the team structure when you're doing an individual workout, and there's certain adaptations that happen only when you're doing a football practice. So he had, 32 rushing yards out the gate in the opener. He didn't even eclipse 100 until after the 4th or 5th game. It's going to be that same type of adaptation when he comes back. So
it's a repeat of last year. And what do you worry about after holdouts like that? Quad strains, calf pulls, hamstrings.
Soft tissue.
Okay, so let's say there is some sort of soft tissue injury. What is his motivation? This year,
he's a hired gun
through that injury. His goal this year is to help Pittsburgh, but more important, help himself.
Help himself
as free agency.
This isn't about Steelers. I'm telling you, this is no longer about the Steelers. It's about Le'Veon Bell. And it's about him getting through this season.
Well, and it became that way when that 4 o'clock deadline passed and no long-term deal was reached. I think we have to file this under is what it is. Because
well, everybody else is taking care of the coach, Antonio Brown, Ben Roethlisberger, what have you. He doesn't have his deal, so.
The Steelers open the season September 9th at the Browns. They will then host the Chiefs.
You know, I love fans that are rooting for the Raiders.
John Gruden is back on the sidelines, and some new faces on our Monday night team. Joe Tessitore handling play-by-play. Jason Witten joins him in the booth. Booger McFarland will be an analyst from the field, and our Lisa Salters continues her reporting during the game. Here is our crew previewing Gruden and the Raiders.
Of course, the reason these two guys are sitting next to me is because John Gruden went off and grabbed himself $100 million to go back to the NFL.
Thank you, John. Appreciate that.
So let's talk about Chucky's return to the black hole, where there have been a lot of high hopes, but a lot of disappointment since he left. They've gone through 9 head coaches since then and only made the playoffs 2 times. Do they win again and win now?
I think he does win. He's going to build a program, but he has a tough division, the AFC West. So it's going to be a huge challenge for him, and I'm excited. I'm excited to see what he's been doing down there in the lab, studying it up at the Fired Football Coaches Association. And I know he loves Derek Carr. He has playmakers all over the field, and I'm excited to watch him.
Here's the key for Oakland. Can they get the offense going and can they get it rolling? John Gruden, offensive genius, having played for him in Tampa, the West Coast system, and you put Doug Martin behind that offensive line, they're going to run the football. The key will be on defense, though. You know they got 2 edge rushers. Can the back end hold up for them to be successful? I think it can. I think in the long end, they'll struggle a little bit early, though.
Yeah, Mack and Irvin up front coming off the edge as good as you're going to see. But the back end, that's where they could use an uptick. You know, we're going to get some answers, though, very early on because the opening Monday Nighter, I love this matchup against that free agency buzz team, the Rams.
Yeah, the Rams are tough, and it doesn't open up easy for John Gruden to see Sean McVay and this Gen X coaching style that he has. He had a great offseason, and Todd Gurley, the workhorse. He looked like a young secretariat out there. So they're 11-5, and a lot of people have them as their favorite out of the NFC. So tough matchup for John and his Raiders, but it's great to see him back in coaching. I know he's excited.
You know, and one of the bigger keys for John is off the field. The last time John coached, social media wasn't as relevant now. Now you got guys Facegramming and Instagramming all in the locker room.
Did it exist? A 16-year stint between having a job.
Gruden has to get used to that. And if he does and he adapts to these young players, he'll be fine.
Chucky's back. We get to see him September 10th on Monday Night Football.
Gentlemen, thank you. He sure is back. The question is, when is Khalil Mack back? And what that relationship looks like when he does return. What is it like right now between Khalil Mack and John Gruden?
They're not talking.
Yeah,
they're
that's
not
what I
talking.
thought.
They haven't spoken since John Gruden took over as the head coach. And as long as there's no communication, no offers, it's tough to get a deal done. And you look at what the Raiders did this offseason. They spent a lot of money on a lot of different players at this point in time, and they didn't get a deal done with Khalil Mack. And you wonder if all these players being paid what they have been paid gives them a little bit less flexibility, frankly, moving ahead here into the future. So there's no deal on the horizon. It doesn't seem like the two sides are in a good spot right now, and it doesn't look like we'll be seeing Khalil Mack anytime soon.
Does that surprise you, Darren, when you hear Khalil Mack has not spoken to John Gruden since he took the job?
Absolutely, because he's one of your, outside of Carr, who's your quarterback, this is your best football player on the football team. This is your cornerstone, the most threatening guy that you have in your locker room. He's the guy that's going to make those plays in the third and fourth quarter. He's your best pass rusher. So if you're John Gruden, I don't think there's any excuse for John Gruden not to have already communicated with Khalil Mack. And I don't care what it is. Well, we've been calling agents, and our agents aren't talking or whatnot. Call the player. Find out. I don't care if you have to camp out at his house. You figure out a way to get in front of Khalil Mack and make sure you have that conversation, because you can only get better when you have Khalil Mack on your football team.
And hey, listen, I'm hearing that Khalil Mack has been training in Buffalo. Meanwhile, you got John Gruden saying he's vowing to the fans, to get him in camp. Next minute, he's saying, well, we weren't necessarily the best defense with him there. Last year, they were 23rd ranked, but at the same time, Khalil Mack still had 10.5 sacks. But I talked to Derek Johnson last night, and he said, actually, you know what, there's not a lot of buzz about it in camp in terms of people worrying. He's been in the league a long time. When you get closer to the regular season, that's really when you start worrying. Meanwhile, he says he and Tahir Whitehead are trying to learn the verbals and the backside of that defense that they're changing under Paul Gunther to get that together. But he said John Gruden reminds them every day, not just about being mentally tough, but other reminders, like the fact that, they've only won one divisional championship since 2002. They've had this amount of losing seasons or what have you. He said we need to focus on being good consistently. So that's really their focus right now.
The danger when guys like Khalil Mack or Aaron Donald aren't in camp and coaches and players talk about them is that somebody's going to say something inadvertently that's going to ruffle some feathers.
Yes.
And so this week, John Gruden says the defense wasn't very good last year with Khalil Mack. And whether or not he meant that as a shot or not doesn't really matter, because I will promise you that there are people who took it as a shot. And so when that happens, it only exacerbates some of the bad feelings that are going on and only increases the chances that a holdout are going to last longer than it should. Really, the best course of action when somebody's not there is basically we're not going to talk about people who aren't here. And that's
Bill
it.
Belichick. See Bill Belichick. Mack, by the way, has the second most sacks in the last 3 seasons behind only Chandler Jones. Still to come on NFL Live, Terrell Owens. I mean, the third person references never really get old. Let's go, Theo. Listen, Darren, you had to watch. I know standing on the star, it's tough to see, and you had your moments. But, as a player, he was electric.
Phenomenal. Well, as a football player, he's phenomenal. And just the things he could do. He could not only play on the outside, but at his size, they could move him in the slot. He was hard to handle there. You motion him out of the backfield. Great hands, great run after catch. I mean, he was that guy when the Eagles or the San Francisco 49ers walked off the bus. He was that guy you thought, this is the one, not the quarterback. You didn't worry about the quarterback. You worried about number 81. Where's he lining up, and how do we stop him? But a great player.
That player that you always had to account for, to your point. You know, you better know where he is because he's likely in the end zone if you've misplaced him. But he was mercurial, I guess is the best word, JoJo. I mean, there was some drama.
Well, listen, I mean, there might be some people in the locker room who say he rubbed him the wrong way. Certainly some people in the media will say that. But he was appointment television before the game, during the game, and after the game. You knew he was pointing to the back of the jersey. And listen, this is probably one of my favorite moments when, come on now, he knows and understands he was the show. He was doing social media even before social media was invented. Look, working the obliques, every part of every ab, and then you got Drew Rosenhaus talking about next question, every question, and tomorrow's question. So there was, I mean, come on, having a press conference outside your house, T.O. set precedents before precedents were precedents.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And, Shefty, I bet you have some stories.
Well, again, we saw that one highlight of the game against the Green Bay Packers. It was a wild card game. And what people forget in that game is that he had 4 drops and a lost fumble. And he cannot hold on to the football that day. And when the game was on the line, with 3 seconds remaining, Steve Young throws the 25-yard touchdown pass to beat the Green Bay Packers 30-27. That was, I believe, the first big play he made in the NFL. Huge play. That helped put him on the map as T.O. That helped him love me some me, and do all the things that he later went on to accomplish in his Hall of Fame career. And, by the way, he's worthy of all the conversation. He's a tremendous player. But how come we don't have one of these segments about Ray Lewis or Brian Dawkins or Brian Urlacher or Jerry Kramer about some of the other players that were going to all this?
You know what? In fairness, we have. We heard from, we've talked about Doc on Monday. You weren't here. You've been busy. Brian Urlacher, yes.
Breaking news.
We have.
Okay, good. I should make sure.
Yeah, you did. Well done, Shefty. We took care of it. Listen, the one thing that we are talking about now that is different from those other guys, of course, is his decision not to attend the Hall of Fame induction ceremony. And here is Hall of Fame President David Baker.
What I told him was that we were deeply disappointed. It's unprecedented. Nobody's ever done this in the history of the league before. But the reason we're disappointed is because we wanted to honor him. But what I told him is he's welcome right up until the last moment. And if he doesn't come to enshrinement, he's welcome there every day for the rest of his life. Because our job, you know, our mission is to honor the heroes of the game, preserve its history, promote its values, and celebrate excellence everywhere.
Well, I tell you what, I like that message, and I really like that the invitation stands up until it is too late, up until the induction ceremony has taken place. But I do wonder, is this something we talk about now in everybody's opinion, or 5 years from now when you walk through the hall or visitors go through the hall, do you remember, hey, T.O., well, remember, he's the one. He decided not to attend. It doesn't matter.
I don't think it matters. I honestly really don't think it matters. I mean, especially in T.O.'s mind, does it matter? No, I don't think so. And I don't think he looks at it. I think he's looking at it as I'm going to go spend some time with my friends and family and go that direction. In my opinion, I would like to see T.O. go, not just to go to the Hall of Fame, not just because of him, but because of the class that he's walking in with. This is a great class. I mean, the Urlachers, the Ray Lewises, the Randy Mosses, the Dawkins. This is a very good class that's going in together. And for him not to be there, it sort of takes away from that luster of the entire event.
Notice I've been to Canton probably a dozen times at this time of the year. And on Friday, they have a Ray Nitschke luncheon where the members of the Pro Football Hall of Fame roast the incoming class. And the only people allowed in that room, they used to have the president of Pro Football Writers, which is why I've been to that luncheon a couple of times. But the only people allowed in that room are the Hall of Fame players and the incoming class. And that is one of the most unforgettable experiences that I've ever attended. And the gold jacket ceremony on a Friday night, and they give out the jackets. That's an incredible feeling when they put that jacket on you amongst your new teammates and the fellow inductees for that year. And then Saturday, when you're on that stage, is also a great moment and a way to pay tribute to all the people in your life on a large platform. He's going to get to celebrate this his own way. But I feel sad that he's going to miss some of this because he's never going to have a chance to duplicate that the rest of his life. And that's his decision. He gets to celebrate this any way he wants. He's a Hall of Fame player. But this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that he's turning his back on. His right, but he will never be able to do the things that he can do this weekend.
And I was just going to say, you know, I've had an opportunity to talk to Terrell several times over the last month, and there is no blinking in his mind about, you know, his decision. Every time I've talked to him, he's, you know, had a strong fortitude about his reasons for doing this. I know he's developing, you know, some content to further tell his story after the event that he's having at the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga. And even though there are a lot of, as Adam is saying, a lot of indelible moments to take away from this weekend, it's not something that is making him hesitate or change his mind, even though that invitation stands all the way up until the event.
I don't know that he fully understands and appreciates what he's missing specifically. And he can do everything that he wants to do in terms of content and celebrations and salutes and speeches anytime. But Friday is unique. Saturday is unique. They come, they go, and they will never, ever
I think you got a great point. You make a great point because, you know, guys like myself who, you know, that's my goal was to always make it to the Hall of Fame. Not there and haven't gotten there, but when I look at the Hall of Fame, it's a special moment. That day is a special moment. And for me, I'm going to be there this Saturday, and I'll see Doc and I'll see Ray Lewis and Urlacher and guys that I played with, but and Randy Moss at the same time. But I'm still going to miss this guy not being there. Yeah. I really am. I think he deserves to be. He should be there with this class.
There is still time, but to your point, he doesn't seem unsure of his decision. But until it's over, there's an opportunity to be there. T.O. not the only player known for his trash talk. When we come back, Jalen Ramsey had some choice words about his Week 1 matchup against OBJ.
Yeah, he good, but if y'all want to say he the best at his position, I'm the best at my position. So we're gonna go at it. We're gonna give the people a show. First game of the season. You're gonna have some wins. I'm gonna have some wins. I just plan on having more wins. You know, that's the plan I'm gonna go in there with. I'm going to work my ass off to get to that point where I can, you know, like I just said, not let anybody down.
Well, fair enough, Darren. I mean, he's good, I'm good. Both those statements are true. What do you see when you think about this matchup?
Look, there's a lot of respect in that because it's simply the way he went about saying that. Listen, he's going to get some wins. Odell's going to get some wins. I'll get some wins. So there's some respect there. It wasn't like he was just going at Odell. So right. I like to put that out of the way. But I like the matchup. I mean, I like it. When they're in one-on-one situations, you're going to see all eyes are going to be on that matchup. You know, Ramsey's a long guy, gets his hands on you at the line of scrimmage. Odell's a make you miss type of guy and run after catch player. But at the same time, how often are they going to see each other? Because there's no way Pat Shurmur's going to put Odell in a situation where he's going to just line him up one-on-one with Ramsey all day. You can believe they're going to move Odell around. So he may get his catches in one-on-one situations, but for the most part, they're probably not going to see each other the entire game.
Well, this is going to be an excellent test right out of the gate, particularly with what Odell is coming back from, working back from a broken ankle. So his short area speed will be tested off jump. And, of course, Jalen is going to be right there seeing exactly what he has on the occasions when he's on and when he follows him or not. But I'm very interested to see that competition. And, you know, Odell has so much pride. He loves football, very enthusiastic about getting back on the field and showing everybody that he hasn't lost a step and is even better. Matter of fact, when I was at Giants camp, Sterling Shepard said he looks even better than what he was years before. So I'm very curious to see what that looks like at game speed.
Well, and to be fair, we all often put the Ramsey trash talk in one category. That certainly was not that. There was some healthy respect there. But here is this from our Jags reporter, Mike DiRocco. The play of the day, he says, from Jaguars practice, number 6 rookie wide receiver DJ Clark caught a touchdown pass over Jalen Ramsey in the back corner of the end zone in one-on-one DB versus wide receiver drills. Ramsey, of course, not thrilled. The result, he and Clark playfully went back and forth after the play, Ramsey needling Clark about needing a triple move to get open and that he wouldn't have time to do that during the game. Still, it was a great catch by Chark, who was able to get both feet inbounds before falling.
Wow, he got all that in a tweet?
Yeah, he got all that in a tweet. That's 40 characters? It seemed like it, no?
That was 600
characters. It's one-on-one drills.
Yeah, but they're good. We love those in training camp.
I got beaten one-on-one drills every once in a while.
All the time.
Once.
All the time.
Once in my life.
Still fun. Come on. Other Week 1 matchups you are looking forward to, Adam Schefter?
The unbeaten savior from San Francisco, Jimmy Garoppolo, goes up against the Minnesota Vikings defense. Jimmy Garoppolo has never lost a game in the NFL, and now he's got the challenge of playing a very tough Vikings defense, as good a defense as there is in the league. His unbeaten record, his challenge to Joe Montana is going to be put to the test early on, Darren.
Josina Anderson, what are you looking forward to week one?
Well, listen, I like what Darren had to say and Adam Schefter had to say, but we're also going to get this one in with Amari Cooper and Marcus Peters. Marcus changing over teams, you know, trying to show people he's still the physical guy that he is, and being able to lock down Amari Cooper trying to come back from some injuries, showing that he can still get it done, and the reason why.
Receiver edition of Inside the Headlines. We'll start with a Field Yates report on espn.com. that says veteran wideout Eric Decker works out for the Patriots. And for more, we will turn to our Patriots reporter, Mike Reese. And in New England, Mike, there has certainly been a number of departures at that position, plus the 4-game suspension for Julian Edelman. Is there concern regarding the wide receiver spot?
Well, good afternoon, Wendy. You look at the team's actions and you say there is some level of concern for the Patriots at receiver today. They informed wide receiver Jordan Matthews that he was going to be released. And, you know, he hurt his hamstring in Sunday's practice. And I'm told that the decision, the Patriots thinking, was that the hamstring was part of that decision to release him, but not the only factor. You know, they gave him a contract that included $300,000 in bonuses and guarantees, obviously hoping that he would be part of the mix. But he's no longer with the team. Kenny Britt remains out with a hamstring injury. He could be back soon. Malcolm Mitchell hasn't been on the field with a knee injury. So here's the picture for the Patriots at receiver. You have Julian Edelman, you have Chris Hogan, you have Cordero Patterson, and you have Philip Dorsett. The former #1 pick of the Colts has got a lot of run here at Patriots training camp. I caught up with him after practice today to talk about the attrition at the receiver position, and he said, guys are going to get nicked up. My mindset has to be that I'm just going to go out and work as hard as I can and let the chips fall where they may. He said he talked to Jordan Matthews this morning, said he was disappointed for him, obviously, but the Patriots moving forward, and we'll see now if they do make a move for someone like Eric Decker, because there is some concern at that position.
Mike, thank you. And Darren, when we look ahead to the schedule, the Patriots' first 2 games against the Texans and the Jaguars, so pretty good defenses. Would you have cause for concern if you were New England?
Listen, I can't remember the last time the New England Patriots lost the first game of the season, especially at home. I think they're going to come in as prepared as they always are. Belichick will have them in the right spots and right places to go up against Deshaun Foster, Watson and the Texans at the same time. But I think the second game is the one you really have to concern yourself with. On the road, in Jacksonville, physical football team who almost had them in the playoff games last year. And I think that's a game right there on the road, which I would be concerned
Well,
about.
Mike makes a good point. Actions speak louder than words. Clearly, there's some concern if they've got guys coming through there. Our next headline involving new wide receivers for the Saints. Here is headline from the New Orleans Times-Picayune. Saints sign receivers Michael Floyd and Brandon Tate. And, Adam, there had been speculation as a possible landing spot for Des Bryant in New Orleans. Do these signings signal otherwise, or what do you hear regarding Bryant?
I think Des Bryant is in a situation here where he's been on the street for a while now. This has gone on since April. So I don't think the Saints signing a couple of receivers is connected to Des Bryant in any way, shape, or form. Des Bryant's in a different category right now. Des Bryant basically is waiting for the right opportunity, and there are also a number of teams that aren't interested in Des Bryant. So it's going to take a team that he's interested in, that also has some interest, hasn't materialized. I think there might have been a period of time where he was wondering whether or not he wanted to play football again. And I think when you think about those things, and then training camp begins, maybe at that point in time, you say, you know what? You see everybody else going to camp, getting fired up for the season, kicks off tomorrow night in Canton, and maybe that gets the juices going again. So, again, it's just the right time, right fit, right team. And at some point, I think Des will find a landing spot here.
Well, and we've said from the outset it will be a waiting game, which it looks like it is. Our final headline coming from Vikings.com. Signing extension helps Diggs, Stephon Diggs, that is, deliver on a promise to his late father. And at a press conference yesterday, he spoke about the emotional impact of his new deal.
My dad sat me down a couple months before he passed away, and he just told me that, you know, look after your brothers, look after your mom, and basically look after your family, and it meant a lot to me. So, you know, with this day coming forward, it just came full circle, and I have a lot of emotions, you know, you can understand a little bit, but, you know, for it to come all the way around, I'm happy that I can look at my mom and smile and tell her that everything's going to be okay.
And JoJo, I know you spent some time with Diggs. How emotional is this for him?
Well, you can hear it in his voice. It's very visceral, you know, to be able to realize this type of accomplishment in your life, for your father not to be there. I know Diggs has told me every time, you know, he goes out on the field, he pays homage to his father, and this is just another way of doing this, being able to provide financial security for his family and for future generations. You know, he's been through a lot as a fifth-rounder coming out of Maryland. There were times when he felt misunderstood and underestimated, but now everybody knows, particularly after the Minneapolis Miracle, who Stephon Diggs is, and bravo for him for accomplishing this goal.
No question about that. Still to come, Frank Clark's road to the NFL was anything but easy, but his desire to create a better life for his family drove his success. His story next.
You know, I knew we were struggling. I knew we was homeless. You know, I knew my mom was fighting for, you know, her life just to put food on the table, make sure I had a meal to eat.